In this section, we're going to cover all the math and trig functions that are commonly used within our usual workday. Odds are that you already have used these in some fashion or form. Why? Because most of them are already readily available in Excel. That said, we're going to be using a few of these and looking at how we can use them for looking at our prices. In this case, a sample solution of the products tables with the Northwind Access database, and looking at how we could look at our prices and see how we can improve them or even analyze them furthermore. That said, let's go ahead and look into the demo. Let's start by opening Excel and opening a blank workbook. Let's head into Power Pivot, Manage Ribbon button, and select from our databases, from Access Northwind in particular, from our specific folder, which in this case is Math and Trig. Let's test the connection. It should be successful. And select the table. We are interested in this case only into the products. We can click Finish. And it has been successfully imported. What we're attempting to do in this demo is leverage the functions, Math and Trig in particular, that allow us to analyze and play with our list price and our numbers. Having rounding, up, down, absolutes, integers, so that we can take a look and see what we can improve with our numbers there and see if there's something we can do as a financial analyst. Let's go ahead and start with that in mind into creating a calculated column. Let's start creating an absolute function. This one's going to be based between the list price and the standard cost. So we're just getting a number of our profit here, and we're calling it absolute profit. So we know how much we're really making on a specific product. See if we can improve upon that as well. We also want to find out a ceiling. What's the top limit of we have in our list price if we were to increase it to 50 cents? Notice that we have some ceiling there, and it doesn't really increase much. Maybe if we reduce it to -1 or 1 itself, because it doesn't take much of that. What about 50% increase? No change. How about 2? Start to change it. Notice we started seeing some differences in there. From 10, some dropped, others not. So it's just something to play with in there. For the moment, we're going to leave it at 50 cents in there. We're going to name it appropriately too, as ceiling list price. Then we're going to head into currency. We want to see what currency we're using first and foremost, and that will be displayed into this number. Well, it doesn't seem much of a change because we're using dollars, but if you would have multiple different ones that came from the database, you would be able to see the difference and determine, well, if it's not dollar, maybe we should be doing something about it and convert it properly. So we're going to name this column currency list price. We're going to look at also looking at a floor, or what a bottom that we could leverage to do with 50 cents in here too. Notice that I mistyped an extra parentheses, so that would have given us problem. I'm going to go and name it floor list price. Now we're going to do an int. Why? Because it's much more easier to work with integers. And we've converted to an int our values in there. Naming this one int list price. We're going to be following, what if we wanted to create a random price in here? How would we do that? We would start with 1, but let's put a top to our list price. This could also be on the ceiling price. So just keep that in mind, that these could be recursive formulas that are nested that could be leveraged against each other to give you some more data for analysis. process. We're going to go ahead and create another. Now we're going to start rounding here. The first round is on the list price, just with a number of digits. Of course, I made a typo, so that means I have to choose the column correctly. And now that works properly. I'm going to name this the rounded list price. This is just a simple round, but we could also round up in a similar fashion that we use with the ceiling and the floor. We have those functions available. In the list price, I'm going to do it to 1. And notice that this one does have some values that we will see reflected afterwards. Here we're not seeing the list price and comparing it apples to apples, but we will be seeing it once we use it in the pivot table. We're going to also do this in the same fashion with a round down. List price, of course, and this time it's just the reverse order. Notice that it's going downwards instead of upwards, in case we were wanting to see how much we could really cut down our prices. We're going to name this rounded down list price. So far we have completed creating all the calculated columns, but we also need a couple of calculated fields here. We're going to go ahead and create a couple of these. We'll name one the calculated field sum list price, and as expected it is using sum of the list price column. We notice that it proceeded without any error. We're going to create another one, but this one's going to use the sum x. This one's a little bit lengthy, but the nice thing about it is we'll explain it at the same time we're working on it. Sum x requires the following parameters: a table. We're going to leverage another function in here. We're going to use filter. Why? Because that will allow us to filter the values that we want. In this case, I'm not being too picky, and what I'm doing is filtering those values that are greater than 5. This is just something I came up with. Doesn't mean that has to be for your case. Your case could change completely. And notice we have values here. So the biggest importance in the power of sum x is that while sums everything, you can add filters to values in sum x. That is something you can't do with sum. As mentioned before, we're telling it in products, I want you to just sum those that are greater than 5. This could also be changed easily to 15. Notice that it changes completely. I'm going to leave it as it was originally. Now let's go back into our workbook. Let's switch to our workbook. Let's go and insert a pivot table, choosing our external data connection, and use a new worksheet. We're going to call it, of course, products. So what do we want to do? Let's start adding, first and foremost, the list price. Right, but we want to see also the by product name. Now we start seeing things changing. Let's add, how do we want to check to see if we have the list price? And notice that we have numbers instead of a total before. Don't fret yet. Notice that they match exactly. Let's switch to the Power Pivot window. And they match exactly as we were expected. So everything is in order there. Now let's go start analyzing what if we could round down? Would it make sense? We have the list price here. Rounding down would bring down a few things. Why would we round down? This could be a goal that the company sets, or that finances probably is asking to production. Could we run it down to $20 as list price? Or maybe it could be as the cost price. Questions, analysis, that's what these numbers are for. What about rounding up? Same thing applies. We look at the list price and see, would there be room? We could also hide this and make it easier to scroll down. Would there be room to increase our prices? And how much? Notice there. Of course, we're going to make this a little bit more visible that way. Notice. It does beg some questions there. Is it possible? It seems to be not out of the question that we could increase some prices without having those pesky decimals in there. We could even round them up to integers completely if we wanted to look at that. We have also, if you wanted to create a random list price for a specific product, which doesn't make sense, but maybe some products are well in line for something of that sort. That our cost is so low that maybe we can change them once in a while. We could also look at the list prices in integer we were looking before to see if we could find some matches and increases or decreases. Floor price and ceiling price also, we've seen them before. We'll add them in here. And now we can scroll to see them.